Welcome back to Doctor Supercoach podcast, powered by Code Sports. You're on with Pig and Pistol. How are you going right now, Pistol?
I'm doing awesome. It's hard to be too upset with Supercoach when you're flying. A 2.457 for me last week has me overtaken Chizo and all the other podcasters to 2.2k overall. So yeah, the team is absolutely flying, despite my horrible start. I guess it only takes, I guess I didn't really, when I said, I'm not going to make up any ground until after the buys, I didn't expect that to be true realistically. Like I knew mathematically it was possible, but it's happened. It's very exciting. It's all going to burn and blow up in my face, I'm absolutely sure. So I've been gloating about getting Rankin at that cheap price at 450k like 5-6 weeks ago, and now he's out with a hammy for multiple weeks. So yeah, I have lots of issues and the team is definitely going to run out of trades, but I'm going to have a good time, while I can. How did your week go, Pig?
How many, out of interest, how many trades do you have left before this week?
17. So I've max traded basically every week.
Yeah. All right. I think that's kind of around the par. I think a lot of people will have around that. So that's fair enough. I had a kind of mediocre 23-32, which kind of just has me hovering still, like I'm around that 10K and just not able to move at the moment. Yeah, mediocre team putting out mediocre scores, but that's what we're doing right now. But we do have someone in the Doctor Supercoach Slack sitting at number 1. So shout out to Zero Pressure and his team. Absolutely flying at the moment. One of the things looking at his team is, and the difference between mine, I'm trying to work out what's happened, is the premiums, I guess, are kind of similar. It's just the rookies off field that he is absolutely dominating. So going through his team, he really has 2 rookies on field as of last week, and they were really good ones. They were Wilson and Sam Darcy, who can put out 100 on any week, whereas my team's still kind of fielding about 5 rookies. So I think that's really what, and Selby and other people do talk about, like getting rookies off field is the goal. And I think the teams that have done that quicker are having a really, really good seasons. And that probably just comes down to like buying the cheaper premiums at their cheaper price rather than paying up for guys in the 600K. If you can pick off like the low 500s like Dawson or Oliver, whoever it might have been at those prices, and get them on your field, you get more of them rather than rookies. Seems to be something that's working for some teams this year. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think CP's been more patient than most of us. I mean, it's held Martin and Young, I'm pretty sure, the whole time, as well as, he's still got Steele and I think there was someone else. I can't remember who it was. I think he may have started
Luke
Rankin and Jackson. Not entirely sure. Yep. Didn't start Bonds from memory as well. So, yeah, I think there's been a lot more patience and just focusing on the upgrade cadence. And, this is what your team looks like if you don't constantly swing the axe in every which way and direction. So his team is like by far the strongest team that I can see, which is super impressive. And while we're doing shout outs to some of our patrons, Cullen as well in Golden Freezer is sitting at number 8th overall. So 2 patrons sitting in the top 10 is pretty impressive pre-buys as well. And hopefully the rest of us, come home strong after the buys, and it'll be a big finish for Doctor Supercoach.
Absolutely. That's the plan, but definitely some learnings about maybe holding guys that you thought in the preseason and you picked them for a reason, not culling them too quickly, and also just buying cheaper premiums to get rookies off field. It'll be interesting to see how they end up kind of by the end, if they get lighter on trades, or if they're not putting out the giant scores because maybe they've got, I don't know, the Olivers instead of the Butters, for example. Who knows? But right now, absolutely flying. Have we got any Patreon signups or Cancer Council donations?
We do have a couple of Cancer Council donations, so I'll quickly go through them. I'm going to start very carefully with Go Crom saying, This is from the previous week. Guess my donation didn't go through the same way my field swap didn't. Was in game day laughing that after all this time, I finally got to field Sexton. Ended up leaving Jones on as an emergency loop and missing out on that extra 44. So that was the previous week, which is, have to note. Thank you very much for your generous donation. Go Crom. JC has left the optimized VC on Heaney, realizing after the game and leaving Luke Ryan wondering why I don't love him. Well, I mean, it worked. So congratulations,
that was
JC.
About the same score.
Timmy's Turtle says left the optimized C on Heaney. Didn't realize until midway through the first quarter. Dare I say I'll miss out on a monster Gorn or English captain score. Timmy's Turtles has come up on top with that one, but appreciate the Cancer Council donation nevertheless. Tristan Webster has said, I drifted off to sleep expecting Parrish on field and ready to tear off a 200 against North Melbourne. Woke up to find out he's a laid out and I forgot to put an E on a midfielder.
Oh, no.
Still scored 2,400, but could have been a huge week. So well done to Tristan. Thank you for the donation. Not sure why there was no E on the midfielder. Come on. You can still set that.
Yeah, you can do that on Mondays.
That's right. Throwback to Go Crom. He's donated again. He said, it's me again. Seems to be a reoccurring donate for dumb things. Had Sexton set up for the loop this time, but then I set up another forward line loop with Jones, and the only way I could avoid Jones's 8 would have been to also lose the Sexton 18. So I had Ryan VC, but I got greedy. I didn't listen to Slack, and I took merit, and I cost myself a mid 2,400 plus score. There was a lot going on there, Go Combat. I feel like you just need to check in with your loopholes before the week starts and get that sorted. But the Cancer Council does love you, so thank you for your donation. And lastly,
there's definitely some times where you can overthink it and do too much.
And to Moose's Masseuses, panic boosted Sheasel to Zeret, which has hurt in multiple ways. A, lost points on the trade. B, DPP'd myself out of being able to bring in my preferred trade this week. And C, absolutely destroyed my buy structure, as now I have 2 primos not playing in round 12 versus 6 premiums not playing in round 14. That's look, there's worse trades if that makes you feel better at all. And you can always upgrade to players coming off their bye on the first, round 12 bye. And six is probably the comfortable max. 7 you can get away with if you've planned really well. So not in too much trouble just yet. And I hope that's made you feel a little bit better. And thank you very much for your generous Cancer Council donation.
Yeah, maybe it just means you'll dominate that first bye because you won't have many players on that bye.
I mean, I hope so. And we are now $724 shy of the 30,000 mark for the Cancer Council. So looking forward to hopefully hitting that later in the season.
Oh, awesome. Absolutely. Looking forward to that. So as we get into the meat of the podcast, I reckon we can talk about some potential trade-out options. So generally, we normally talk about rookies that kind of have a break-even similar to their average. They're kind of about ready to go. So I don't think we need to go through and list all of those guys. Just if you got a rookie who's done his job, got his BE, break-evens now around his average, that's usually a pretty good indicator to go. But I've gone through and looked at kind of the most traded out. And I just want to get your view on if you think you give the all clear that, yep, these guys can go, or if you actually think some of them should be held. Darcy Wilson is actually the most traded out player, and that's because he has a break-even of 76. Would you be trading him out, or is he just secure enough on field that you might nearly even try and hold to his buy?
If I didn't have other issues to deal with, I would be trading him out this week. However, if you hold this round, I feel like it's a double hold because you have West Coast the following week, although they've been no slouch lately, so maybe not. But I am tempted to double hold if I get through this round. So 76 is pretty achievable based on his last 4 games has been on fire. 88, 126, 90, 75. I don't think it's like a dire trade out. If people wanted to use this week to perhaps get some new rookies, I feel like that, and not trade out Wilson just in preparation for the bye, I feel like that is an option as well.
Yeah, I feel like Darcy Wilson can go if he kind of gets you the absolute A grader you want. I'm very comfortable holding him and just fielding him because he's doing really well as kind of an F6. And if you trade him out, then who are you going to field? Do you have to field a Garcia he got dropped, but do you have to field a Frazier or a Joe Richards? They might be all right, but I don't think they're at his scoring level. But if it's a difference between you kind of settling for, I don't know, let's say a Nick Blakey type versus getting a Dan Houston type, for example, I would be happy to move him
absolutely.
on. Caleb Windsor is the next traded out.
For good reason. He's got that one big score he got coming out of his rolling average. His break even is 96. I know it's a decent matchup against Saints, but he's only scored once above 96. And to be honest, most of his score this year has been quite poor. Outside of that 118, which is out of his rolling average, he's not been a great scorer. So I think you take your 172k profit and run.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of us traded him out around that first buy, and those that have held have been rewarded. He's been quite good in terms of making a bit more money after that. Closey, now he's quite heavily traded out because he's kind of got a bit of money. He's 320 on his head and he's getting people to someone they want. He does have a break even of 31, so I think you could probably hold, but it's only for one more week because then that 100 goes out of his average.
This one I'm not super comfortable with. I would like to hold and reassess based on what score he gets. Carlton have been, first they were hard to score against and they're easy to score against. They've been up in the air based, they've been in, I guess, poorer form at the moment. But Closey, if you look afterwards, has Essendon and then St Kilda. Both games, I think, would be very good scores for him. So at this stage, I'm thinking, unless he's putting in a back-to-back 40, which he might, we can probably hold him for a little longer. I do, however, fear that he might get a rest this week because, Gold Coast have been resting a lot of their players after some tough games in the last 2 weeks with short turnaround. So he might be one that's just managed. There's no rumor or anything. I'm just thinking about it.
No, they've done it with a few others.
They got some people to bring back in. It wouldn't be a bad time to just give him a week off. And in that case, I feel like that's probably pretty good because then you get Essendon next week. So I really don't like trading him. I prefer not to as my, I guess, final non-fence sitting answer.
Yeah, sure. I guess on those Gold Coast boys, people are moving on Graham and Jake Rogers, or some people are anyway. They've both kind of got really, really low break-evens and still got a bit of money to make. Do you think they're getting back
Rogers,
in?
I do. I think he can come back.
Yep.
I mean, Carlton's not an ideal matchup, but he's got money to make. So he's only made 66k. I feel like, yes, he might drop this week, but if you hold him again to that round 14 bye, when his break-even resets, I feel like you'll squeeze out an extra 30k or 40k. I think he can make 100k, Jake Rogers, which is probably what we need to his bye, and I think he'll get back in the team. So I wouldn't look to trade Rogers if I could. Graham, on the other hand, I'm not sure he's going to make it back in the team anytime soon. The VFL team had a bye, so he couldn't even put on a display. It might take a bit of time for him to work his way back, so I'm more comfortable trading Graham.
Yeah, plus he's already kind of made his money. He's already made over 100k and done his job for us.
1 week too early. If he only made that extra 30k, it would have been nice.
Yeah, would have been very delightful. People are trading out Nat Fyfe. What do you think of that? I know you and Chizo talked about Nat Fyfe a fair bit last week.
It's quite difficult to judge Fyfe just because you kind of know what you're getting, and that upside is really good, and he has put in 2 stinkers, and there's no real reason for it. And, I mean, well, there was some reason that we spoke about last week. I feel like now I know he's dropped 41k. it's not like you're, pot committed. You can jump off at any point in time, but his break even is only 84. So you're not likely to lose much money this week. Like if he puts out a 60, which I really think is his floor, you're losing like 7, 8K, maybe 10K. I just think it's worthwhile holding and not stressing about it this round.
It's projected 70, so if he hits that, he loses 6K. So, yeah, you're probably right for 10K for 60, something like that. Does have Collingwood, hence what you believe Collingwood are like. I was going to try and stir you up then because you've been stirring me up about the Bombers, but we're sitting second.
You are sitting second, looking very average up the top there.
Best ever second team on the ladder.
Yeah. Let's revisit this in the next couple of weeks.
All right, Darcy Jones.
Oh, well, Darcy Jones now out for 6 to 8 weeks, so you just got to pick the time.
Yeah, that was a big one.
If you can ditch, if you can make a good upgrade, do that and get rid of Darcy Jones whenever, like next week. It doesn't matter, he's out. But if you can't really make that top line upgrade anyway, then you just use it as a way to get an extra player, hopefully, throughout the buys. Richards looks pretty good at the moment for pies, so that might be an easy 60K, and it's just unfortunate when a rookie gets injured.
And he doesn't have much money on his head, so if you're kind of doing a one up, one down with him, you're not really going to be able to get someone that big probably, so you might have to settle, or it might be worth going 2 down, or it might be worth just holding him this week, and then next week when we're going in the buys and you just have 3 trades, then that might be an easier way to get rid of him.
Absolutely.
There's a couple others. Blake Howes, he can definitely go. Roberts, if you still got him, I think he can go. I have Charlie Comben. A few people are trading him out, but he's still got that big score in his rolling average and a 17 break even. He's actually starting to look a bit more confident and good. So I'm at least holding Comben for one more week until his buy, and then I'll just reassess depending on what he gets this week.
I would do the same.
People are trading out Sweet.
I think he's back. I mean, watching that Hawks game, they literally had to play Dixon in the ruck because Vicentini he's not a big enough body to play in the ruck. Like Meek was broader, just a thick boy. He was being able to get into those ruck contests.
We love thick Meek.
he was really having his way there with the young Port ruck. They needed the bigger body in, so they were using Finlayson sometimes, and it was mostly Dixon. I think they'll learn from that. I think it was a pretty glaring error. They knew what Meek looked like coming into the game. They probably should have figured that out. And next week, do you know who they're playing next week, Pig? Yeah.
This one coming. Off the top of my head, it would be Brisbane.
It is North Melbourne. He's going to play Sherry.
Oh, the following one.
In round 11. And Sherry is a monster. Like he's going to absolutely destroy.
He's a big thick boy.
He's going to absolutely destroy him. So Sweet's coming back. I am unless they don't have another option. Like they got absolutely. It was very obvious to the eye. I'm sure he'll be back this week. He has a negative 70 break even. Don't trade him. He's coming back. He's making us another 70K this week, and we're going to be loving him.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. So if we're trading some of those guys out, a lot of people have not many of them because you would have moved a few on, but if you have, you can get rid of them. Trading in, I think there's 2 rookies that stand above the others, that being Joe Richards and Joel Freya from the Bulldogs. I know a few people in Slack, because I actually went early on Freya last week because I didn't love the rookies on the bubble last week, which in hindsight, Revel was probably the one to go for. He looked really good. I just wasn't as certain on Sullivan's job security, so I went early on Freya. And a few people are like, who the hell is that? But I think he's a really, really good player. He actually looked really comfortable in that Bulldogs lineup, and Bevo even said after in his post-match that we've got a really settled best 22 now, really happy with it. even when they made the sub, that was literally just because of Garcia got tired. It wasn't, needing to make a change. So Bevo's talking up the current Bulldogs 22 that played this week. So I reckon Freya's quite safe, and he's got the forward and mid
helpful
swing. So I think he's a really good option. And I know you're a big fan of Joe Richards being a Pies guy.
I do think he adds something to the Pies forward line. I mean, look, honestly, I don't think you could have gone too wrong last week, because Sullivan now, due to the Pies' further injuries, has probably cemented himself for a couple more weeks. Tom Mitchell's been ruled out until round 13 at the earliest. Will Hoskin-Elliott has a low-grade hamstring strain that's confirmed. And Jordan De Goey is in doubt this Friday for, due to those groin injuries again. So, on top of the injuries that Pies already have, Sullivan should survive for a couple more weeks, which is all he needed to do to make 150K. And Joe Richards, I think, is in a very similar boat, but he's probably one that's able to survive Sullivan a little bit more. Maybe, depends on where we play some of our players. This is a lot of midfield injuries. I just think Richards, it's not a guarantee, to be honest. When Elliott's back, they can play like for like, and McCreary's going to be back probably this week. There's a world in which he plays one game. I just think he's quite good, and his scoring potential seems to be pretty decent as well. So I like him.
Yep.
It's pretty hard to rank a Bulldogs rookie. I know we're going to ask, to rank them, but these Bulldogs rookies, firstly, most of them have been very good this year. I think everyone has been good, haven't they? Gallagher's been really sneaky good.
Yep.
Buku.
And obviously Garcia and Sam Darcy have been incredible, and I know people didn't trade them in because they were worried about the Bevo factor.
Buku, I started. It's been great.
Yeah. So there's been a lot. And not just this year. Bevo's actually in other years when he plays a rookie, he does give them a real chance. So, yeah, I'm pretty hot on Fraser, but I'm also quite hot on Richards. So, yeah, I'm happy with either of them. I think gut feeling is maybe Richards as the better trade-in option, but I think Fraser's really good as well.
Got Swans and then Collingwood. I know Bulldogs looks quite good, but I do feel like if your team loses, the coach is more likely to make changes. I don't know if that sways anybody, but if they lose the next two, a whole bunch of players could be thrown around, and that does scare me.
They certainly could. I would say he's probably got a better Supercoach role than Richards playing forward. Like Freya kind of plays on the wing and kind of that half-back flank a lot. So he's been pushing kind of pushes up the ground, but is back in the defence helping out a lot too. He's kind of this big, rangy, mobile, wingy half-back guy. So maybe slightly better Supercoach role, but in a worse team. So really, I think you're really splitting hairs between them. It might depend on if you need a mid versus a forward.
I think there's probably another decent option this week if you didn't get them last week.
Yeah.
There's probably a couple, to be honest, but Kane McAuliffe is still 148K. 61% CBAs, and the Richmond team is absolutely falling like flies at the moment. Against Dons, it's not the worst matchup. I keep saying that, but nothing's a good matchup for Richmond. So everything's hard for Richmond, but it's just job security wise. None of the Richmond rookies have done too well this season. None have done exceptionally well, but job security wise, they just have so many injuries that surely he can get a little bit of a run at it right now. So he might be worth, I guess, your consideration as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So fourth in the CBA count for Richmond. There's so many CBAs in this game just because of how many goals Brisbane kicked. But if you look at it, Shai Bolton had 29 CBAs, Thompson Dow had 25, Dion Prestia had 23, and then next was Kay McAuliffe on 22. and then there was a very big drop off. So he's part of that 4-man rotation. At least he was last week.
Yep.
Yeah, I like him. I think he is quite a good option to trade in.
How do you rank, I guess, those? And even, I mean, you could probably trade in if you wanted to Revel at who's 160. That's not too late. So between those 4, realistically, who would you trade in?
I think I'd still have Richards and Freya above the other 2 just because of price. Yep. And it's really, splitting hairs about whether you want a defender, whether you want a forward, whether you have to play him on field or not. Then I probably would just keep doing it by price, McAuliffe and then Revel. Because if you're paying 160k for a rookie, like the job security is good, but then does that impact what you're doing with your other trade? Does it mean you're having to settle for a worse premium on the other end? That could be something, but so maybe there's 4 good options. So I guess another question which people have been asking, is this a good week to go double down? Because we're not sure what rookies are going to be on the horizon. Should we go 2 down this week and kind of bank some cash, get ready for upgrades maybe after the first buy? Or is it still better to keep the cadence going and go up one up, one down?
It's a good question. I think Zach Reed's probably on the horizon for hopefully next week.
Yeah, it should be soon.
So that's one that you can kind of lock away. And Ethan Phillips looks okay, but you probably don't want 2 non-DPP, I guess, defender downgrade options if you're getting Zach Reed. And I'm not sure how far away Caulfield is, but he can't disappear. Maybe he has.
No, I think he was like a 13, 14-week injury from memory.
Well, not far from that.
Yeah, I suppose that is coming up.
Yeah, I think it's okay. I think you can do it. I mean, look, it's every week. Like last week, we identified Richards as somebody that we want to get, and then we get to the next week, and another one has popped up in Freya. So the same thing might happen. Be like, okay, we'll bank on Zach Reed, and then the next one, someone else pops up. So there's probably going to be other options. It's not like any of these I love so much that it's like, yes, this is the best rookies we're going to get for weeks. I'm going to double downgrade. Probably just taking one and hoping that it works out. I think I'm going to throw something back at you.
Sure.
Sexton is 277k. We know his role. He's got a break even of -40. Off the halfback, he scored 118 last week and 82 the round before. Really great role. He has 3 more weeks until Powell comes back from his suspension. 3 more weeks gets us to his bye. And if he matches his projected score, which is quite low on the Supercoach website, that's a projection of roughly like 75, 76-ish, he will make 100k. I think he's probably going to outperform that given they've got Carlton, Essendon, St Kilda, and we know how they go against Saints, those half-backers. Is he a better option potentially than some of these rookies this week?
Yeah, I actually probably think he is. The points on field, going to make you 100k minimum probably in the next 3 weeks, kind of that safety. I guess he's got the issues of he could get dropped at any moment, but we do think he's kind of filling Will Power's spot, which we know is for 3 more weeks. It's the price again though, like if you're getting him, does that mean that you can't afford your premium on the upgrade side of things? That's kind of the one thing that, and that's probably why I'm not getting Sexton, because I am doing a 1 up, 1 down. But if I did Sexton, I'd have to double down. And I think I want to keep my cadence going and just keep trying to get these rookies off field. Although Sexton is playing a lot better than a rookie. So yeah, I think he's a really good option. I think he'll make you 100k. I think he's actually still a pretty good trade in. You just got to think about what are you doing on the other side with your second trade. If you've one of those rare people with a boost, I don't know who still has boosts at this time of year, but if you do and you've got 3, then I think he's a really good option. What do you think of Sexy Land?
I mean, I've got ranking to deal with and I can't double upgrade, so someone's going down. So it is an option for me. I think It's I don't know is the real answer. I'm looking at my team and thinking how that would work. Like you get 1 week of him playing as a best 22, and that's probably like maximum efficiency or maximum point scoring, because you've got this guy that should score much better than the other rookies, and you have him on field. And then you're straight into the buys where it doesn't really matter. Like your 18 best players matter during these buy rounds, and it does matter, but it doesn't matter that much. If he's not as good, you really want to hit those top end guys, and if this trade impacts your ability to get a top end guy, which I can't see how it wouldn't. Like it's most likely the difference between him and Richards in my bank is like 50k versus 200k. With 200k next week, I'm doing Wilson to Zeret in one go. It's just happening. But if I have 50k, what am I shopping? I'm shopping at Charlie Curnow. Like otherwise, I'm trying to cash out. I don't know, a Jai Clark for 80k, and then I'm scrounging up enough to be able to get to like a Petrarca or something. There's a big quality difference in players if you go the more expensive option. I think this is going to take some Excel work. I'm going to sit down, look at with the 3 additional trades through the buys, like how this might impact me longer term. And if it stops me from getting any of the top end guys or puts me in danger of missing out, then I just won't do it.
Yeah, I think that's a good little reminder to don't just think about your trades this week. Plan all your trades throughout the buys, or at least who you think you're going to be trading out when, and who you're going to be looking to trade in. Kind of, especially primos coming off their buy. Start looking at that. Who you want to fill out those final slots on your team, because when we come out of the buys after round 15, we kind of want all premiums on field, like 22 guns on our field and no more rookies on field. So you've got to try and work out how you're going to do that and who you're trading out and who you're getting in. And I guess speaking of getting people in, so those that are going 1 up, 1 down this week, the most traded in player premium at the time recording is Dan Houston.
Wow, that's surprising.
So break even of 97, he's down to 570k coming off of 148. So people are shopping for Houston. I think that's a really, really good buy. People are also shopping for Dane Zorko, but he's now up at 616k and has a buy next week. But he's got a break even of 78, and he's probably going to be over 630k if you want to buy him after his buy. What do you think about Dane?
I think you just get him after his buy now. I mean, in for a penny, in for a pound, it's extra 20k, and you get an extra, you could get more than 1 score, more depending on who you're bringing in, I guess. You probably get an extra additional score. I wouldn't. I'd stay away from Zorko until after his buy. Houston makes more sense to me because around 13 buy is really great. But I mean, keep in mind before this game, he just went 93 and 83. He does have North though, so and not just that, he looked unbelievable against Hawthorn. Like he was incredible. So I if I was a non-owner of Houston, I don't blame any of these guys for jumping on Houston. Like he would probably be my top trade-in target if I didn't own him. Yeah. So I don't blame anyone. I think if I'm shopping in the back line though, there's 2 other, I guess, players I would consider value options this week, Pig. Whitfield's 500k, which is probably one of the cheapest we get, and McGovern is 534k. Do you see any of these as, I guess, top 6 threats or candidates for best players in our backline?
Yeah, McGovern definitely. I'm thinking, like, projecting forward, and I think McGovern will probably be top 6. Like, I think I've got him at D5 projection at the moment. But I think he's really great. Like, he's on an especially hot run at the moment, and that even includes that little injury game against, I think it was Collingwood, where he went to hospital during the game. He still scored well. So, yeah, I absolutely think McGovern's an amazing trade-in right now. Lockie Whitfield as well. Yeah, he's great value. I think he's one of those players that gets a lot of cheapies, so he's maybe better in the DT format, but he can still do enough in Supercoach to kind of I don't think he'll be a top 6, but I think he'll be close enough, like kind of that top 8 defender range. So I think Whitfield and McGovern are probably two of the great defender trade-ins. But so is Zach Fisher, I think, still. What do you think about the Fish? You got him last week. He's now gone up in price a fair bit, but he's still very, very cheap. I think his 3-round average is 117 or something off the top of my head as well. So he's just getting it done. Do you think it's too late for Zach Fisher?
It's a great question. I definitely think Fisher's better than Whitfield, just because of the price. And Whitfield coming up doesn't have the best run and has around 15 tag again with James Jordan. So you're locking in another bad score, which is not ideal. Fisher has the role we were hoping he would have. It's off that halfback. I can't really see anything at the moment outside of injury that will change it. McKercher should come back and that should just be them two again. So I don't think Sheasel is going to be playing like full-time back and taking that role away from Fisher like we saw potentially earlier in the season. I mean, Sheasel really did play majority midfield, little stints forward and back at various times in the quarter, but wasn't really a threat to Fisher. So I think he's a really, really good value buy at 443k. Definitely up there in terms of like forward trade-ins. I think he's one of the best forwards that you could purchase, especially with ranking out. If you missed him, I think it's an easy 100k. It's just down back. I don't think he's good enough to make the top 6. I probably prefer McGovern to him, in all honesty, and Houston down. It just depends which line you're shopping in. But I can't imagine too many people have finished their forward lines.
No.
So, Fisher I think can come in. If you missed him, still looks really good and the price is really good and is going to be 500k very shortly.
Yeah, even if you trade him into your backline just as a placeholder and say like Darcy Wilson's still sitting at F6 for a few more weeks, then when Wilson goes, Fisher can go back to the forward line. So that's something I think is pretty reasonable. Another defender that people are getting hot on because he's got a 3-round average of 121 is Ed Richards. At 517k, he's playing that Libba role and absolutely dominating in it. Do you have any semblance of a desire for Ed Richards?
Sure, he's playing really well, but it's only like his 3rd game as a midfielder. I've already said that 79, the 163, and the 118, and the 163 was against Richmond. Yeah. He did look awesome against GWS, but they did seem a bit off. And now he's got Swans, who are the best side in the competition, and then Collingwood, who are the 2nd best side in the competition. Sorry, Bombers fans. I don't love the draw, and also Libba thankfully got cleared today to return. We don't really know how far away that's going to be. I mean, it says, I think Mitch Cleary said he was eyeing off a return within 3 weeks. So Richards probably loses most of his role or a lot of his CBAs, and his 517k. It just feels quite bad to me.
Yep.
Overall, yeah.
No, I agree. I wouldn't look at Ed Richards on it, but there has been a lot of chat in Slack about him, so it's time to discuss him. I think that's most of the defenders. We're thinking probably Houston if you want a big dog. I actually think Jeremy McGovern is now a big dog. Then otherwise you could maybe look at Lockie Whitfield, Zach Fisher. If we go to midfielders, there's a few because Tom Green is an insane price right now. Some of us paid $620k for him. He went up to $630. He's now down around the $480k with a real low break even. A matchup with Geelong, the easiest team to score against for midfielders this year. I think people should be going to get Tom Green, but he does have a bye the following week, so that puts a little wrinkle in it. What do you think about getting, I guess, a general philosophy about getting people before their bye?
Yep.
But if they're going to go up, 20k or something.
I think if they're going to go up like 40k, it depends where your line is. For me, break even 71, right? So even if he puts out a 150, he's not going up 40K. I think like chances are maybe he goes like I'd be really happy if he put out a 120, and that's only him going up like 16, 17K. And I think you just pay that price. You pay 500K after the buy. You get a guy you're going to have 2 scores instead of 1 for the buy, and then you pick him up on the way off the buy instead. I think that's quite an easy choice for those that don't have Tom Green. Just get him off the buy. You get more points for minimal extra cash. And I guess, Pig, that would leave most people looking at Matt Rowell at 566K. Are you hesitant at all to bring him in against Carlton this week?
No, not at all. I think Matt Rowell's a great buy. And this is actually something I identified last week in my captain's videos, and I was going to nearly recommend Isaac Heaney because of this, but I didn't in the end because Hewitt came back in. But what I'm talking about is that the first 5 or so weeks of the rounds of the year, Carlton were the hardest matchup for inside midfielders to score against. That was pretty heavily because of Kennedy and Hewitt doing jobs on people and just shutting people down, being quite defensive. In the last 5 rounds, Carlton are now actually the easiest matchup for inside midfielders. And that coincides with Sam Walsh's return. So I'm not just saying Sam's a bad defender. I'm saying that him being in the midfield means that, Hewitt and Kennedy are kind of pushed out and they're not doing that defensive role, to the point where they've both been used as subs recently as well. And then someone in Slack also pointed out that was around the same time they brought Pitnet back and started running 2 rucks. I don't know if that's a causation or a correlation or just a coincidence. I'm not sure. But what we do know is that over the last 5 rounds, Carlton are now the easiest matchup for inside midfielders. And like Rowbottom and Heaney both scored 120, and Chad Warner had that 175 on them last week. So that kind of shows what people are doing to them. So, yeah, Matt Rowell, absolutely get him in now. Got a low break even. He's dropped in price. I think he's pretty comfortably still a top 8 mid, and he now has actually what we're going to call an easy matchup this week.
So all I'm hearing is bring him in and throw away the C. Straight on Rowell.
Well, he plays early enough. You could even use the VC and give yourself 2 chances. But, yes, I think he'll be great.
Yeah.
I mean, he personally might go head-to-head with Cripps and maybe they nullify each other a little bit, but I think all the Gold Coast these 3 Gold Coast midfielders, they're very hard to predict which one of them's having the giant game. They seem to swap it around. Usually 2 of them do and 1 doesn't. But when they have dominated like the West Coast game or the Richmond game, all 3 of them can go massive. So I guess that's what we'd be hoping for them this week. But yeah, bring Matt Rowell in.
Don't think they'll dominate Carlton in the same way, but stranger things have happened. He did go head-to-head with Libba, which I guess might be the closest sort of head-to-head matchup with Cripps, and that was one of his lowest scores of the year with a sub-ton. So we'll see what happens. I do imagine they go head-to-head with Cripps. That seems like quite a obvious matchup. So I look forward to watching that battle.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Matt Rowell's probably the best primo mid in terms of a top 8 mid. Well, I think Tom Green's better value, but also has a buy.
What about Clayton Oliver? Is he back? He's 524K with a break even of 92.
I don't think he's back in terms of 120 Clary, but I'd be pretty comfortable to say he's like a 105 plus guy, maybe even 110, which kind of puts him close enough. He looked really good on the weekend. Yes, it was against West Coast, who since Elliot Yeo's gone out, they've actually been really easy to score against again in there. Petrarca didn't do very well in that game, so it was kind of Clary was shouldering the load, and he looked great. He looked like he was moving well. He was hungry for it. You've been talking a bit about his time on ground. Is that still something you're concerned about?
He's been getting more minutes lately, but still very low. I think it's enough that I'm still not going to be yelling buy. It's obviously going to build up as the season progresses, so there will come a point where you'll have just held him long enough that he becomes a really good pick, and by that stage his price is creeping up, and you probably always you pick your point in time, you pay fair value for him. I just can't see He's just not a 120 average dude when his time on ground is so low. Like, it's just not going to happen. So,
No.
It might happen later in the year, but I'd rather that be my final upgrade, to be honest. If his minutes are going to start picking up through that bye period, feels like that would be. I'm actually like really considering him, not this week because I still need multiple mids, but as like my final M8, just waiting to see, because obviously Prime, not that he's in Prime, but Prime Clary is a Supercoach beast. So if he can get anywhere near that level, I definitely want to be on it rather than not.
He might be someone where we even see him for the next few weeks, let him have a rest for his bye, bring him after his bye, even if it's like 580 or 590, just if he's kind of showing what we want to see.
It's going to be interesting if Rosie comes back as well, because I don't think teams can probably handle Rosie and Oliver. But no. Rosie is going to be very cheap. Like, he's going to be sub 500k, and has a good buy as well. And, prior to his injuries, he was averaging good Supercoach numbers. I think it was 108, which is like kind of in that same similar Clary range. So it'll be a conversation to have at a later date.
Yeah, and like you said, Rosie having that nice buy is nice, and that was one of the reasons I started him but have now moved off. But I agree with you. I think there's still top 6 mids that are probably like the 6 you want, and then there's the 2 spots that kind of can be filled by maybe one's a Clary, maybe someone's got a Dawson, maybe someone's got an LDU still hanging around. I kind of that's how I'm kind of leaning that you probably are going to end up. Like, you probably want Sarong, Green, Butters, Merritt, Bont, and Rao, I think, is the 6. And then how you feel those last 2 out, I think will be a bit of variance between teams. Who you got cheap, or did you start an LDU like me or a Dawson like you, and you're kind of just riding them?
I think we got Dunkley with a 160 break even this week. It could be a shrewd pickup after his buy for potentially sub 600k.
I agree. I think he's going to be close as well in that range. So now if we move on to forwards, I guess Isaac Heaney's actually quite a traded in player, and I'm not fully sure why, because he's still got a high break even. He's got a buy next week. I guess people are seeing that his price has dropped a bit and they're thinking, oh, cool, I'll get on. But he's someone I'd definitely wait a week on, or 2 till after his buy.
No, I'm with you for that.
Yeah. Zach Fisher, we spoke about him in the defence, but I think he's probably one of the best forward buys, especially if you've got Rankin and you want to go down, make some money. Fisher's awesome. I do have Fisher being a top 6 forward for the rest of the year if he kind of stays in that defence. So I think he's a good buy. And you've already talked about you don't think it's too late for him.
No, buy him.
Yep. Any other forwards? We talked about Zorko. It's a bit late. People are buying, actually a lot of people are buying Luke Jackson. I guess that's because he had that really big score. They see that big score against Marshall. He does have a nice buy, but also Sean Darcy has to come back at some stage.
Yeah, that's crazy to me, because as soon as Sean Darcy's back, Jackson just doesn't become a Supercoach pick. So it's an easy pass for me, but happy owners got a bit of a price spike in case, they want to make some moves throughout the buys. They can at least have options. I think the one guy I've got my eye on that has a 93 break even is Charlie Curnow. He has kind of gone back at times when Blues are losing. I wouldn't expect that to continue, but it's not like a bad role because he just gets more around the ball. He's just a very, very dangerous and good player. I think in any stage you can pretty much pick him up. He's not like fixture proof, but he's close to it. He just kicks goals. He's very, very hard to match up on. He's only 470k. After the Blues buy, they've got a really great run. That's majority in Victoria, like a hard majority. I just think there'll be some big scores along that way. So 470k now without Rankin, I need another forward, and he'll be somebody that I probably look at in the next week or two.
Yeah, Kerno, and I'll put Mackay in the same boat. We've been saying it for a few weeks in Slack that Carlton have this really hard run up until their bye. So we're kind of just watching and monitoring these two. And then after their bye, it really opens up and they get a lot more easy teams. So I think those two could have a really good finish to the year. And depends how many trades we have left, but it might even be a case where you get one for 6 weeks and then pivot to a different player to finish the season or something. But yeah, Mackay and Kerno, keep an eye on them after their bye, I think.
Yep. I think, yeah.
And then, yeah, I kind of think that's all the forwards that I'm really interested in. Brian Myers has been quite good and he's good value, but I actually think Geelong aren't as much chop as they've shown. Is there any other forwards you've got any interest
No,
in?
I just wanted to know, in your opinion, if Rankin is a definite trade out. He's got a break even of 52. Some people, like myself, had 6 primo mids and Darcy on the bench, Darcy and Wilson, so have a very adequate cover during this time period. He played so much midfield time against Collingwood and looked unbelievably good.
He was amazing. His
form at the moment, he's such an incredible player. I think it comes down to I don't want to trade him because it's really fun. He's had a 3-round average of 120, a 5-round average of 111. Anyone that's got him, it feels really terrible that he's missing this run of 3 great games, and he's been such good fun. Do we need to trade him out?
Well, it does suck because people were eyeing off this next fixture as ones that we thought he'd go really well in. I think you still should trade. So they've said he's definitely missing 3 weeks. So that's 3 games of 0 score from him. Then if he does come back then he plays 1 game and then he has his bye. So it's actually missing. Best case scenario from what they're saying is he'll play 1 match in the next 5 weeks, which I think is just way too long to hold, especially with these extra trades, even though we're burning through them. And if he does miss that one before the bye, which could be quite likely, if it's not quite right, they would just be smart to sit him out and just give him a 5-week break and bring him back after the bye. So whether he's playing 1 in the next 5 or 0 in the next 5, I don't think that's enough. I think it's way too much money to be holding, especially when there are some options presenting like Zach Fisher or even Sexton to go down and probably score similar and make some money for the time being. He does seem like someone would want to bring back in, so that also sucks a bit if you're trading him out and then trading him back in. But you actually are in this situation. What are you thinking?
I really, really, really wanted to hold him. I'm looking at the fixtures. They've said he's out 3, at least. And the 4th game back, if it was any other team, I would probably have kept him, maybe stupidly, but I would have done it. But he's playing Sydney, and he's going to get the James Jordan tag. There's no one else worth tagging in that side. Well, maybe Dawson, but it just means that, am I really going to be waiting all this time for him to come in and just get a hard tag? That's not good. He'll probably still score well-ish up forward, but he's not coming in scoring 110s or 120s, in which case maybe that resets his break-even because, it's quite low as is. But unfortunately, our teams will probably be done by then, so I think for most of us, there's going to be no Rankin party unless injuries later in the year that we can sideways trade to him.
Yeah, that's sad to say.
Very sad.
But our teams aren't fully done by, he doesn't have. Or does he have?
He does. So it's probably done.
Yeah. Okay. So you might
unfortunately.
Be right. Yeah. That I would trade, but I think we do need to say that does suck. He was a great pickup, and everyone that got on him was enjoying the benefits, and it's a cruel game sometimes.
Yep.
So I'll say the question, is Lloyd Meek a keeper? because he is absolutely dominating. And I want to say no to that. But we do need to also say Lloyd Meek has been an incredible pick this year. He was one of those ones where it was, at the time it was a bit iffy. Do I not? He had 3 hard fixtures to start his career as the solo ruck. Got through them pretty well. And then on a few different podcasts, I was saying, please just hold a few different episodes. Just hold him up until his bye because he's got an incredible run leading kind of up to his bye, and that's what we're in the middle of now. And that's why he's absolutely dominating. He's just played pretty much all of the easy teams in a row, and he's doing it so well. I mean, that's not going to happen after his bye, and he's still going to be quite a lot of points behind the Gawns of the world. So I would hold him to his bye and then flick him on, but just appreciate that how much money and points on field he's made you. So great pick, but not a keeper.
Well, I'm going to say he is a keeper. Not because I agree with that, but I'm just going to say it. Because
you own him.
No, look, I am loving the ride at the moment. I think has he got a bit of a hard draw now? Is Brisbane and Adelaide? I feel like they're not.
Brisbane should be fine, but Adelaide will be tough.
So I'll do what you say. I'm going to listen to you, Pig. I'm going to hold him until the bye and then reassess. And you know what? I might even hold him one after the bye because they have West Coast in round 16 and then they have Geelong in round 17. So I might be holding him for a lot longer than I'm expecting.
Yeah.
To be completely honest.
There you go. You could do that. I think he's very similar to Kieran Briggs last year. People traded in Briggs, had him either R2 or R3. He was doing these really, really good scores and made a heap of money, got a lot of points, but was still kind of that 15 points off the best ruckman. And you're feeling really good that you got him, but by the end, final teams are done, kind of by the end of the buys, you don't want your R2 giving up 15 points a game. And Meek might even be more. So, yeah, very similar to Kieran Briggs last year. And I think those that jumped off Kieran Briggs at the right time onto Tim English or Rowan Marshall, I think that was the right move, and I think it'll be the right move here.
I actually don't think I'll hold him to the bye, to be completely honest. With those 3 trades, if during the buys, if I ever have an additional trade in the bye rounds and leftover money, that won't impact my future trades because it'll probably only need to be 40, 50K. I'll just flick Meek to English at the chance that I get because English is 596K. And he's got a 167 break even. So they're going to get within 40K of each other probably this week. So
that's incredible. Those people that got on Meek and didn't get on English are just loving life.
Yeah. It's been great. It's real fun right now. I might do it next week.
The annoying thing you could. The annoying thing about English and Marshall is they both have the last buy. So if you're trading Meek,
it's got the last buy too.
Whenever it is. Yeah, okay. So it's not like you can trade Meek coming onto his buy to someone coming off his buy. You could do it for Gawn if you don't have Gawn. That could be a nice option. But annoyingly, English and Marshall have the last one.
Yeah.
And, that's actually a reasonable segue. A lot of people have asked me to do a bit of a fixture analysis of English versus Marshall because in terms of, like, most people have Gawn and then they're trying to work out who is that last rock spot we want. Is it English, like we all thought, or is it Marshall now? Because Marshall's on fire the last few games. And English has not looked that great. So I've gone through and had a look, and it's actually very, very similar. So up until their bye, Marshall has a slightly better run, but there's only 4 games until their bye. And that's heavily buoyed by the fact that he plays West Coast, so that weights it in his favour. So Marshall in the next 4 games has slightly better run. Then after their bye, they essentially have an identical difficulty. So I've gone through and kind of looked at, like, Freo are the hardest team. So I've given them a score of 18, Adelaide are next 17, down to West Coast of 1. So I've kind of plugged those in, like, who they're playing. So if they play West Coast, they get a score of 1, and then it adds them all up. And they literally both come out as 80. So after their bye, their difficulty is identical. Good thing about Marshall is, and I spoke about this in a preseason podcast with the coaches panel, is that they have 9 games after their bye and 8 of them are at Marvel. And Marshall has a really, really good record at Marvel. I think it's his third highest scoring ground, so he loves playing there. The one that isn't at Marvel, he plays at Adelaide Oval, which is his second highest scoring ground. So in terms of actually venues where he loves dominating, Marshall has an awesome run. But in terms of the ruckman they're going to hit up against, it's very, very even between English and Marshall. So I think whoever you trade in kind of is a gut feeling in terms of who you think will average more. I still have faith that English will be R2, but I do have some questions. He's not kind of giving me a huge amount of confidence lately. What do you think about these two and who will average more from now on?
I think it'll be English. I don't see how Marshall can carry the load for this whole season. Like he's getting pretty. I mean, it looks incredible right now, but I just don't know how he's going to do it for the rest of the year by himself. I feel like English has more support. I mean, that gives Marshall the chance of, I guess, higher scores, but he has been injury prone in the past. So my gut feel is English still, even though he hasn't been in the best form, as you said. One interesting thing to note is usually we go into the buy rounds and you get those 3 trades and you're like, I'm not going to spend these 3 because what am I going to do? Like triple downgrade? It actually might be next week is the time to do that Meek to English trade because you've got additional trades that aren't really going to impact your buy plans. And Meek's break even at the moment is only 69. And then you just said he's got that hard game against Adelaide, so you can avoid it. So realistically, if he's going to get to 550 and next week English is going to be in 580 territory, that's 30K. Like, I'm doing that.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that could be a really a winning move. If people are choosing between English and Marshall, my gut feeling is that English will average more. Marshall probably has the slightly better run in terms of he gets to play West Coast twice now before the end of the year. He also gets some easier, they get similar matchups, but the venues Marshall plays at are really nice. But yeah, just that shouldering the whole load, and every press conference I've heard from Ross Lyon, he just talks about how Marshall is shouldering too much load, but then he doesn't do anything to help him out. So I don't know what's going on there, but maybe he just thinks he can soldier through the whole thing, and maybe he can, but it's still a risk. I think it's a real personal preference kind of thing.
Yeah. Not many questions left for you, Pig, but one of them is regarding Zach Merritt. He's got 157 break even against Richmond this week, but then he goes into tougher matches with Gold Coast and Carlton and West Coast. I guess we'll buy and then West Coast. Is he somebody that's worth paying up for this week despite the high break even just to capitalise on the fixture?
No, I probably don't think he is. I think should do really, really well this weekend, feature highly in my captain video. The following week against Gold Coast I think will be quite tough. And then the following week against Carlton could be hard, but like we said, Carlton have actually been quite easy recently. But no, people did exactly the same thing with Christian Petrarca about a month ago when he was playing Richmond. They said like he had a giant break even. And they said, it doesn't matter, we'll just get him because he's playing Richmond and he'll easily hit that. The issue is if they have a bad game and they don't hit it, like Truck did, and then they plummet in price. So, no, I don't think it's worth paying up for Zach Merritt, especially when there's a very juicy, cheap Matt Rowell there to be had.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm putting it out in the universe, if Zerrett scores a 90, he's going to drop a considerable amount of cash, like 30K, and then he plays Gold Coast, like he could drop another 20K, and then you're looking at a 550 Zach Merritt. So,
which is carbon copy of what Christian Petrarca did.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So, I'm with you. I would be waiting a little bit about that. And the last question has been about another midfielder, and this was asked before the news about Treloar came through. before Liberatore came through. I've spoiled it now. And that was about Adam Treloar and are we actually sleeping on him at 633k with a 69 break even and averaging an absolutely bonkers 117?
Yes. Yeah, we're definitely sleeping on Adam Treloar. But there's always a reason. Like, he's injury prone. He could do a soft tissue at any stage. He's got a big history of that. He's never really been value either. Like, I think that's the thing. He started at 600k. I guess he kind of did get to 580, which might have looked a little bit nice, but he was, why are we going to pay 580 for Adam Treloar as kind of our first upgrade when there's plenty of other people that are falling that we want instead?
Yeah.
And he's gone on this huge run without Libba, especially recently. 107, 153 and 144 in his last 3 games. And yeah, so we're definitely sleeping on him. He's a great player and he's just, I think he will be around that kind of, I don't have him as a top 6 mid, but he's in that bunch of a million other mids that are kind of, you could have for that final 2 spot, definitely. But I think there's just a lot better options and a lot less injury risk options than Adam Treloar at 633.
With Libba in the side, he's averaging like the same as the Rosies and the Oliver, like 108-ish. So it just massively falls away when Libba's in the team.
Yeah, I mean, he's an absolutely great player and we've got to give him his respect. If anyone started him or traded him in, then well done. But yeah, at 630, I'm not looking to do that.
Definitely not. Pig, that's all questions I have. Did you have any last ones before we wrap up?
Nope, that's all me done. Oh, I guess just one question is when we're talking about buys, like especially the Heaney's and the Zorkos, maybe even the Locking Deals, these great players that you want to get, and you've said like definitely don't buy them now, wait till after their buy. If you've only got 1 or 2 premiums on that buy, would it be okay to get them if they've got a low break even and going to go up, or is it still just waiting because you essentially get an extra game of not having a zero rookie? Zero.
I mean, everything
premium
is team dependent, but I don't like getting them 1 game before their buy and just paying the extra 10, 20k that you need to afterwards to get, the points becomes more valuable. It just rarely happens that that's the case. I mean, it actually might happen with Tom Green this week because that first buy, it doesn't have super popular players. But I think in nearly every case, it's just you pick them up afterwards and you call it a day. I think you're getting 2 scores a lot of the time will outscore that 1 big score.
Yeah, I agree. It's the cash going up's a bit annoying, but just budget for that and be ready. And then I think I heard you mention before maybe 6 premiums on any buyers kind of as max as you want to go, maybe 7 you said? How are you feeling with that?
I mean, look, we used to have just 3 buy rounds. This year we have 4 buy rounds. So when we had 3, you kind of had to have some with 7. Just if you had 22 best players, most of the time you're going to have at least 7. Well, not at least 7, but most of the time you maxed out at 7 while you did your upgrading around the buys. This year we've got that extra buy round, and I dare say most people have at least 2 premiums from that buy. I think the average would be closer to 3 than 2. And some people would have like 5 of their own. And once you have that other buy, you really reduce the pressures on you being able to field a full team. And I think any more than 6, you just start getting this additional pressure that you don't really need to have this year because we can spread it out a little bit more. So I'd be looking carefully at your buy plans this year just because even though the premium split might be easier, but some of our rookies have disappeared lately or fallen away or been managed or whatever it is. So we might actually have fewer rookies to choose from to make up the rest of our best 18. So just something that it'll ease the burden if you have a nicer split this year with your premiums.
Yeah. And it could be a good way to make up ground on those some coaches that have gone super heavy on 1 week. But like we said, as always, it's about trying to come out of the buys, after round 15 with 22 premiums on the field if you can, and it's kind of sideways in premiums through the buys is generally, the anti to that. So it's still about doing your ups and downs through the buys and coming out of it as a full team.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. If you have any additional questions, you can always find us on social media. You can find Pig at Pig_DRSC, myself at Pistol_DRSC, Cheezo with a Z, Cheezo_DRSC, and JB_DRSC if you want the most elite advice. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will catch you next week.